got a flyer?
Hey everybody, it's Jasper Simpson.
This is Beyonce. This is Justin Timberlake.
Hey, this is Avril Lavigne. This is Gwen from No Doubt.
Hi, this is Usher, and you're listening to
GSNJ Radio.
What's good, man? It's your boy, Pastor P.
It's your boy, Mike J.
And Lily Dane.
Yeah, so for all of those that want to know about how that weekend went, man, we had a great time over at the Nerf rally. So shout out to Samuel, man, for allowing the Samuel Fields for allowing us to come through and host the situation with the Voice of Reason. It was a pretty good turnout, I would think. What you think, Dane?
It really was. It was good. It was good to be with the kids. I was on the kids team. I was the captain. Got shot in the eye. One of the little kids thought they wanted revenge. Got shot in the eye, so it still hurt, but. It was definitely fun, and then when we had the adult part. It was definitely
the adult part
of
was
fun.
definitely man. I was huffing and puffing, dog. Listen, man, look, they had us out there for about like 25 minutes, bro. As you get older, I don't realize how much out of shape I really am until they was like, "Yo, come play." I'm running around the whole gym like. I thought I was going to have an asthma attack for real. I was like, dog, I need to go to the gym. Edge is right around the corner from me. There's no excuse for this.
Yeah, we had a little free fall. It was just every man. Well, it wasn't every man for themselves. It was just on teams, and whoever had the last person standing. But I think we all died at some point in the game.
Everybody.
Right. But you know what was crazy, though? Did you realize before we started, everybody was practicing their gun. Everybody's gun worked fine.
Everybody.
As soon as the whistle blew, everybody's gun jammed.
It was jamming. It wasn't
we
working.
Couldn't figure nothing out.
It was crazy.
Started throwing darts after a while.
but say that's the first of many, they say. So
yeah.
We're gonna have a couple more going on. He said, I just spoke to him on the phone. He said he wanted to do some other things with the community. He was trying to. I think the next thing on their thing was Linden Wall's Got Talent.
Okay.
So now he wants us, the Voice of Reason, to get out there in the streets and help get a lot of the youth from off the streets of Lindenwood, whoever got time, it doesn't matter, spoken word, whatever, piano, whatever you want to do, break dance, it don't matter, you know what I mean? So I think that he's doing a good platform out there as far as the kids and everything and trying to bring in everybody's nonprofits to work together. So it's definitely something good about to happen, man. So
yeah, he's definitely all about the youth. I remember this one particular part. There were three brothers that were actually, well, two of them were on my team. One was on the opposite team. And when the kids got to go at the end for their free fall, we noticed that all three brothers started out, but by the end of it, they had left. Right. Nobody saw them leave. So when he went to do the raffle, he almost didn't want to do the raffle because they couldn't be a part of it.
Oh, man.
And he was like, you know what? I'll just go and purchase a gun for each of them. So he is definitely all about the youth. He didn't want to disappoint those who were there, but he definitely did not want to leave them out. And I was just like, that's a great thing. And he did not want to leave anybody out. He felt bad that they had to leave.
Yeah, so big shout out to Sam, man, and there's many more things for us to go host out in Lindenwood and other areas. We got some other things about to go on in Philly and a few other places. People have been reaching out to us with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I think that that's what's up because that's the Voice of Reason's platform. That's what we're here for. So we do have a special guest in the building, but I just wanted to say, you know what I mean? I had fun this weekend.
Definitely had fun this weekend.
At the Nerf rally, yo. Somebody, another pastor hit my page and was like, y'all look like y'all had more fun than the kids had.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know,
I told somebody yesterday, I told somebody, I was like, I shouldn't be this excited.
Yeah. The kids, they had fun, but the grown-ups, we was out there yelling a lot more than they was, man. So it was definitely a good situation. But we do have a guest in the building, man. Mr. Young. We have Mr. Young in the building.
Yes.
How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Thank you for being on our show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So for those who may not know, Mr. Young is a poet, a filmmaker, a playwright, a director, a social activist. He kind of does it all.
Golly.
Right.
He's a life coach. He's an instructor, a speaker.
Your bio had it all. I couldn't even get through your whole bio.
Right, it was crazy.
So other than what I just mentioned, just give our audience a little bit of you.
Self-development. So majority of the things that you just embraced is things that I taught myself.
Okay.
So I'm actually in that field now. I'm like, hey, I taught myself all these things. What I could actually do now is turn around and teach people how to benefit from all these things on their own. So if you want to become a writer, that's something that I could teach you, director. And then the thing about it too, it's not scripted where I learn these things. So I don't go by the traditional way. Like I learn how to direct a play by the director not showing up. And I just started, hey,
Okay.
you know what, let's do this. And through trial and errors over the years, I've written and directed my own about 7 productions. Yeah. The same thing with writing. Starting out writing poetry, rhyming a word stanza. And one of my professor at that time had mentioned, hey, I'm going to teach you how to break away from that norm. And he never took the time to do it. So I just sat down one day and started learning how to break away from the normal rhyming words. And that's how I developed. Being a children's author, got my first book published first. Didn't like it what they did to the book, especially because you're paying for the service. They didn't do a good job on the editing. And I paid them again to re-edit it, and they messed up again.
Wow.
And at one point, I started learning how to get it done by myself, and I did it. So for me, it wasn't a regiment where I sat down and I said, hey, I'm reading this book and learning. No, I just sat down and started practicing.
Does that make you want to self-publish? Just hearing him say that.
I'm thinking about it, especially with that price that lady hit me with the other day. I talked to somebody. She was like, yeah, we could promote you, but we want $6,500. I said, golly, that's a lot of bread, but it's worth it if the people can promote you in the right
Properly,
avenues.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It is some people that can help you get to the right place for that bread, but, I don't know her track record. You know what I mean?
But
So it's,
here's what I started to look at with that, because when you're doing self-publishing, you're doing all the work for yourself.
I know.
And then if somebody comes up to you now and say, okay, it's $6,500 to help market this book now, it's now looking at it and saying, hey, and I have to learn this for myself, because what happened, they charged $6,500, but what happened, you're not making back that money.
Right.
So it's like I started.
that was
to
the
look-
first question I asked her too.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna give you $6,500. Is it guaranteed for me to get my $6,500 back?
Which, from a business standpoint, you're supposed to make at least 3 times what you're gonna be paying, because you gotta pay yourself, then you gotta pay for the product,
Right.
and then if you have employees, you gotta pay those employees.
Right.
So the 6,500 gotta be multiplied at least by 3 times for you to really get a benefit. And that's what I started to look at. Most of these companies that are offering marketing, companies or individuals, they're saying this is what they're charging, but guess what? You're not going to make back that money. And it's like, okay, I'm investing to make back something, not investing just to get my work out there. Yeah, it looks good when your work is out there, but when no money is coming in, man, that's like, yo, that $6,500 just went down the drain.
Wow.
So was your first book published a children's book? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So my first book was a children's
What was
book.
the name of the book?
It was called The Prophetic Artist, which actually came from a poem, which actually came from a relationship that I was in. And the idea was to be a gentleman and write a love poem for her every month. So at one point I wrote this poem, and it was called The Prophetic Artist, like prophesizing, saying that, hey, we're going to be together forever. And from that, I wrote that poem, and it was like, hey, this could go into a small little story. So I wrote a 2-page story on it. When I wrote that now, it says, wow, this could be a little chapter book. And I just sat down, prayed for 7 chapters, and that's what I got. And that's how I got into writing books.
Was it like characters in the book?
Yes.
So did you draw the characters? Or?
No. So I had, at that time, I had contracted someone to do the drawing.
Is that book still
Yeah, I was
available?
gonna say, is that book still available?
So what I did now, later on, I learned how to publish my work. That was my first work. That book got published like 7 times because of all the errors that the company was doing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I learned how to publish, and I now republished the book. It's now called The Mountain of Miracles. Same story, and that book got published 1 time, and I did it by myself.
Wow. Nice.
Like, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
And not only that, now I got that published under The Mountain of Miracles, and everything just started opening up. That was the book that actually opened up my whole life, because I actually did it in a different context. I made it like a CD-ROM. So from that standpoint, it had the ebook, it had the audiobook. I actually have a track for it. It's called The Mountain of Miracles, which is sung by Lady Alma. Lady Alma is one of those famous musicians, almost up there with
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that name before.
yeah.
Does she play an instrument? I know
No,
I've heard that name
she's
before.
almost up there like Lauren Hill and Jill Scott.
Yeah.
But she's very, if you go online, type in her Lady Alma, you'll see her work around the world.
I never even heard of
pretty
her.
interesting.
You ever heard of Lady Alma?
I know I've heard that name before.
I never heard of that name before at all. I'm sitting there like, who is that? But everybody knows somebody that knows
I know
somebody
a guy
that
that knows a guy
somebody.
that knows a guy.
Yeah, like that up. Yo, so I was looking at your situation with this life coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, it seems like nowadays, but it seems like everybody I'm looking at now wants to be a life coach.
Right.
I'm seeing that on everybody's page. I mean, what is that, the trend? Nah, for real.
Wait, you guys remember my question about life coach?
Yeah, so it's like, I'm seeing everybody like, I want to be a life coach. I want to be, why? Why do you?
And it's not actually something that I said I wanted to be. I just happened to be in that position. I used to take self-development courses. And after taking the course, one of the requirements was to come back and start coaching others who are now taking the course. So I had a group of 4 people that I had to coach, like, hey, how do you start living your best life? So by me now being in that position that I've taken the course already, I knew the ins and out. So these apprentices that were coming in, I had to now be their coach. So we had like every week I had to schedule a 4-hour session, 1 hour each with everyone, for a period of about 13 weeks. And in that process is actually guiding them through the process of where they are and where they needed to go, whatever goal they have set. So that's how I actually got into it. And afterwards, I started looking at friends and like, hey, I could help you with this circumstance in your life. I had one individual, when I told you I turned her life around, the things that she's doing now, like, and it's just being there in a supportive manner and making sure that, all right, this is where you are, where do you want to go? And then guiding you to helping you to get to that step in your life.
So how much like schooling you need for that?
And with life coaching, it's not about schooling. It's called life coaching, which means that you have lived certain part of your life.
But no, the reason I asked that is because I see people putting like certified life coach
yeah.
on there, like
because
it's
what
something
happened,
really major
all
or
right, so
something.
what happened now, once something comes to the market and it starts to making money now, then people now put it into a certification program. That's saying in order for you to be this, in order for you to be this, you gotta pay this. And you know what? It's so funny because I used to go to all these self-development either courses, seminar and stuff like that, and I started to look at it. Why do I have to pay all this money just to get my life into tact? And the concept is, if I don't have this money, then my life won't be intact. So for years, I started to search and saying, hey, there must be a way that you can freely do things with your life and you don't have to pay all this money. And I never stopped until I found it. So now I teach self-development course. And I teach it from a higher level, which equates to what you were looking at on the car out there, where it says, I am big inner. It's that concept of how you become that bigger person. And it's from a spiritual standpoint. And spiritually, you don't have to pay for things.
Right.
You know how to speak. You don't pay someone to speak, but you have to know what words to speak to enhance your life. Visually, you got to find things to look at that enhances your senses of visual. You don't have to pay someone for that. So these are things that I started to learn, like, hey, through the aspect of the power of your voice, through the aspect of the things that you can see, like, you can now begin, and I don't use transformation. That's another thing that we need to look at, because during my self-development training, they were saying, oh, come and transform your life. Then I understand the concept of what transformation is. It's a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. That's a whole new creature. When you watch the cartoon Transformer, it was these little individual lions that turn into this big So when you're talking about transformation, you're talking about moving from one element to another. I've never seen a human being do a transformation in their life.
Into a different like
No, you're
different
able to
species or something.
translate. You take one thing and you translate it over into a new thing. It's like language. I'm speaking Spanish. It's not changing the whole language. It's just translated into
What it
English.
means, yeah.
So you now, yeah. So that now what I teach, I don't teach transformation like those people. I teach translation. How could I get your life to be translated from not having this to now having this, and I do it naturally?
Okay. Sounds good. So
Yeah.
what about the social activists? What do you do
So,
with that?
being a social activist is actually being in the community and learning how to activate what you have inside of you so it can resonate with people outside. Because the whole concept of social is how do you interact with each other. So for me, teaching self-development course, I'm teaching you how do you become that bigger person on the inside, because whatever is inside is what's going to come outside to interact with each other. So from a social activist, when I go out into the community on a day-to-day basis, it's almost like I prepare myself to go out. So I could go out and interact. I don't just get up and go out. Like, there's morning regiments that I speak life into my own life before I go out into other people's life. There's things that I do, meditation, where I sit down and I meditate, and it's the concept of you seeing yourself from one platform to another, or things that you want to accomplish in life. So these are things that I do. So when I go out there now and I'm being a social activist, meaning that I've prepared myself to activate some type of social interaction with the individuals or group or whatever I'm interacting with in the community. And one of the things that I've learned now, I've moved from where I'm saying, hey, I'm helping you, to now contributing into your life. And it's a big difference. It's like I could help an old lady walk across the street, but I will always have to help her. But if I teach her how to cross the street, then it's a one-time deal. It's that theory where they say you can either give a man a fish or you can teach him. So for me, coming from a teaching background, I'm all about teaching. Because once I could teach you, then I don't, which is another thing, is like, if I teach you this, I don't need you to be around me anymore. Right. Go ahead and develop what you need to develop. And it's almost like there's a lot of people that are out there that are like, hey, come and take part 1, then part 2, then part 3. And all these parts that you're taking, you're paying all this money.
Right.
And it's almost like you now become addicted. And most people don't look at it like that. They look at addicted as like, okay, you're taking drugs. It's not only drugs you can get addicted to. The things that you're actually repeating on a day-to-day basis, they become an addict to your life.
So that kind of leads to like the life coach thing. So did you, how do I say this? Did you ever have a client that, as far as with the life coach, they kind of got used to that from you, and then you felt that they were at a point where they could just handle things, but then they just kept calling you and you had to say, look, you're at this point now. I've gotten you to this point. Now use the steps that I've given you to go ahead and finish out everything that you need to finish out.
Yes, I've been to that point, and I'm learning how to step away.
Okay.
It's almost like they have the theory how the eagle, the child of the eagle, it gets pushed out the nest, and that's how it learns to fly. So for me now, it's like I'm starting to become a little more regiment in being like the Rambo. Not being Rambo as in tough, as in I'm tough with you, but understanding like, hey, you got to go practice these things.
Yeah.
And stop being relying on me.
Practice
Yeah.
principle.
Because I can't live your life for you. I'm just giving you the steps to figure things out when things become a struggle.
And that's the thing, because I run the initiative, it's called I Am Big Inner. And that concept, even people that I've go through with that process, is like, listen, that's mine. That will never be yours. You got to learn how to develop yours.
So with the speaker, would you consider yourself like a motivational speaker, or what type of speaker?
So I'm moving towards what I would call a transactional speaker.
Okay.
And that's something new, which I'm really working on developing now. Not a big fan of motivation or inspiration. And here's why. Motivation is what you give to people and they're motivated to do something. Inspiration is what you develop from inside. But what happened, going back to those seminars that I used to go to, what happened, they taught us about the backroom sales. The backroom sale is when the speaker goes up and says something, and it's either you're motivated or inspired at that moment. And then what's going to happen? You're going to go in the back and purchase something, one of their products. So they taught us the art of it. It's called backroom sales. If you don't get those people that are in your audience to buy, they're going to leave. And 2-3 days later, all that motivation or inspiration wears off. They don't want to buy the product anymore.
Yeah.
So when I started to understand that now, I'm like, wow, motivation and inspiration actually last for so long. When I'm talking about being a transactional speaker now, is teaching you things how you can create what is called a transaction. When you go to the bank and you take out money, you create a transaction. There's no motivation there. There's no, you learn how to create transactions. So what happened now, when you want something, it's either you're going to pay the $6,500 and you get it. That's a transaction. There's no motivation in that.
Right.
There's no inspiration.
right,
There's no, like, this is going to wear off. This is what I want. This is what it costs. And this is the transaction that I have to do to get it.
Okay. That's good.
You know, and I kind of agree. I definitely agree with that. One of my former pastors had a sermon on that when he talked about motivation. He said, be careful when, be careful who you allow to speak in your life when they consider themselves a motivational speaker, because the intention sometimes behind motivational speakers would be to tell you how to live your life. Like to tell you what to do. So I definitely like that aspect of when you classify yourself as a speaker.
And that's one of the things that I'm working on now. Just bringing some different things to the social arena. Even now, I've been in education in 4 different angles. One was starting off as a teacher, being at the angle of in the front of the classroom. Then after that, I resigned from teaching, and then I went back into the community. But what I did, I went back to school. So now I was in a classroom. So now I'm in the middle of the classroom. After that, I got my degree. Then I went back and I became a behavior therapist. So now I'm in the classroom, but I'm in the back of the classroom. So all these 3 components so far, I'm seeing education from 3 different angles. From a teacher, from a student, and from a behavior therapist. And then I go back into the community now, and I started to realize that some of the most successful people in the community, they don't have what we call the education. So I saw it from 4 different angles. And from what I was seeing, I was able to now saying, hey, 90% of the things that you actually learn through the academic education, you will never use in your life.
That's true.
Don't we know it? Don't
definitely
we
true.
know it?
So what I started to develop this year, I call it organic education. Organic is actually coming from something that's natural. The concept, you heard it around organic food, yeah, it's naturally produced.
Right.
So if I'm producing organic education, what does that tell you about the other level of education?
Yeah, manufacturing process. That's that process meat.
Yeah. So the things that we're working on now, I'm setting up an organization, and that's gonna be our main focus: organic education, meaning that it's organically done. The same thing I was saying. I'm teaching you how to use your voice. That's organic,
Right.
natural way of how you develop your life by learning how to speak fluently and speak these things in your life and the life of others.
Right.
How do you see things? Because from a teacher standpoint, we learned about the different types of learning styles: auditory, visual, and stuff like that. But when from a social standpoint, I learned about them. Oh, these are your senses. So you learn through your senses, not too much through the stars. So when you're seeing things, you're learning. Regardless or not if you want it, you're learning. When you're hearing things, it's like we're sitting here right now and you're hearing what I'm saying, but your ears could be picking up what's going on over there. And you're hearing that, but you're not conscious of it. So when I learn about these things, it's like, hey, these are natural way of how you learn. So the whole concept now, if I could get you to develop your senses, then things will make more sense for you, which is the concept of learning.
That's good.
Like that.
So,
That's good right there.
crazy.
That's good.
Because it sounds like it's like one of those times that you be like, I don't know where I heard this from, but I remember someone saying yada yada yada. And it's one of those subconscious things. You heard it while you were entwined with something else.
and then look at it now. If somebody gets up every day and tell you, hey, they love you, they love you, they love you, what does that do for the body, the mind? If you hear that you're loved every day by someone who genuinely love you, that changes your infrastructure inside. You start to become a better person. That's why when young children, and this is where I'm coming from, being a behavioral therapist, then you learn about children and their development. The child who hears, oh, daddy loves you, mommy loves you, day by day, their infrastructure is totally different.
You know what's crazy about that? I don't care. I'm gonna say it. I came up from a structure where, you know, and she doesn't do it anymore, but maybe cause scorn. My mom used to say sometimes, hate you because you look like your dad. Oh, now that is a stinger.
Yeah.
You know, because for one, my dad was never present, so I'm fatherless as it is.
Yeah.
And then two,
Then
the
you're
woman
hearing-
that spit me out, that I love and would do anything for, says, I hate you because you look like your dad. You make me sick. Blah, 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 blah. But then I got a sister that comes from the same father.
Yeah.
And I felt like she used to get loved more than me as coming up. You know what I mean? And it really bothered me to the point where even in my adulthood, I was scorned because I was always the kid that was hated because he looked like his dad.
Yeah.
And that's messed up, and it still stings, you know? And I'm
So-
grown right now.
I know.
And it's still in my mind, subconscious.
All right.
Right.
Let's go biblical with that. Train up the child in the way that you want them to what? Grow. So when they're older, they won't depart, right?
Right.
So you were trained that you look like your father, and because you look like your father, you're worthless.
Right.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So if I'm training you up as that as a child, so you're hearing it day by day, right?
Right.
And you're seeing that your father is not around.
Right.
You're naturally learning these things.
Right.
So you
that's
grew
why
up
I'm
now
like, I'll
as-
never do that to my kids. Like,
See?
I'm always holding on to them, hugging them, telling them I love them. You know
See
why?
that?
Because I don't want them to feel what I felt.
Felt.
You know what I mean? And it scars because I'm still messed up. And then some days I'll be like, I don't know how to be a father because I never had a father, and I deal with that. But I'm still holding on to mine to try to not let them feel what I felt. You know what I'm saying?
So I took psychology as a minor in college, and I'm telling you, I started to learn about these things. Who we are as adults was predominantly formed when we were from 0 to 5.
Wow.
So it's like everything else after your life is a repeat. It's like you learn how to walk, what age? Between 0 to 5. As an adult, there's nothing new. You already learned it.
Ain't that what I told
learn
my
how
son
to talk- you
earlier?
learn how to
Everything
talk
under the
between
sun
0
already.
and
But,
5.
but what happened now, those type of years now, what happened, they're played out in your adult life. So now you're seeing why so many adults have so many mental and behavioral problems.
Damn.
Because these were the things that they endured during their childhood. And it's like all of those things are now, right, kept inside until they're older. This is why when you have people who are older now, they start to quote unquote come out the closet. So to come out the closet is like these were the things that were done to them from a younger age. And now they're at an age where it needs to come out before they start blowing up inside.
Right.
That just got deeper than we thought.
It just got
'Cause
real
it
deep.
hit a few
Because
things.
sometimes go ahead.
It hit a few things for me as well. I don't know if my mom watching this. Sorry, mom, but I know she's watching.
We have
I
to be
know-
that
I
way.
know
This
she's
is the voice
watching.
of reason for a reason.
But you know, growing up with my grandmother, that was just as he said, it was scarred. Growing up with my grandmother, you know, there were past things in my family that, you know, people were never healed from. So me growing up, you know, if you saw my mom, I look just like my mom. I look like her, I walk like her, I act like her. I'm just my mom through and through. So, you know, growing up with my grandmother was just like, oh, you look like your mother. Da, 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 da. So I grew up same way, just thinking, okay, being this way is wrong. And now
That's crazy.
You know, being
Talk, Dane.
you know, now being in my 30s, I'm like, well, who the hell am I? Like,
Right.
I don't know how to be because I was taught the way that I was so wrong, you know, and it's just, you know.
Hold up.
That's crazy.
This guy.
We all have that.
Come on,
same type of
come on.
situation.
Say it.
Because growing up, that's what I got. You look like your dad. You walk like your dad. You act like your dad. And
You was raised by
I was raised
your
by
aunt and
my
uncle.
My aunt and uncle, and it was crazy
Dad
because
never did.
like I actually met the woman that my dad was married to before I was born one day.
Okay.
And she was like, "You look very familiar." And I was like, "I don't know you." She was like, "You look like your dad." I was like, "Okay." She started telling me about my dad, and she was like, "Yeah, he was a great father to my kids." Hold up. Dad, wait a minute. Whoa, my dad was a great father?
You should get respect for
Yeah,
that.
wait. My dad
was
was a
good to
great
your
father?
kids.
Like,
Yeah.
wait, that don't make sense. But then my dad would tell me to my face, I don't know how to be a father. Doesn't make sense. That's the contradiction because I met a woman that she was married to, and you raised her 2 kids, but you don't know me from anywhere. You can Google the stuff that he knows about me. Google it. That's what he knows.
And that's all you found. Wow.
That's crazy, right? So that's funny that all of us are kind of like in that same platform. Like, you know, we all
So,
have been dealing with that.
going-
and that shows you.
Going back to what I said, I'm in the process of developing what I call the organic education. So that is the concept of how do you bring the best out of people.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm using the etymology of the word education, which is educo. Educo means to bring out.
Okay.
And I could.
Where'd
You
you
ready
get
for
that
the-
from?
huh?
What?
Yeah, if you do, and I do research. So, yes, so you do research, and when you do
Right,
research, you find out these things.
Okay.
Like, listen, words have power.
Yes.
they do.
So we got to figure out what are the words that we're using. So you got to do your research. So
Right.
when I found out that the word education comes from the word educo, which educo means to bring out, it actually goes in contradiction of what we're being taught on a day-to-day basis in the concept of academic education. Because it's almost like I'm teaching you stuff to put stuff in you. But educa means to bring out. So all that you are organically, right? Your nature was already placed in you from you were a child in your creation process, right?
Right.
So what happened now when you go to college and they have this thing, it's called a curriculum. The curriculum is designed to bring a lawyer out in you.
Yeah.
It's designed to bring a doctor out in you.
Right.
Right? So that's the whole concept of education. It's not supposed to be, I'm teaching you this so you can go take a test. It's supposed to be around, I'm giving you things and experience in your life that's going to bring that thing that was created inside of you already. So it's a concept of this where they say all of us are equal. So if you want to become an author, that's easy. You just got to find the things to bring it out. It's already inside of you.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't go to space and come back and like,
Be an
oh, I
author."
found this up here. No. If you want to become the next Bill Gates, that's inside of you already.
Yeah.
Bill Gates didn't go to outside, go find the computer. No. Mark Zuckerberg. Nobody left from here, Earth, to go out of space to go find these things. No. They're inside us already.
Right.
You just got to be in the right environment and around the right set of people to bring these things out.
Wow.
Which is almost like music. When you start to do music and you're around musician, even if you haven't done music, at one point you're going to start doing your own little rhyme. Because that's now in an environment where that's bringing that out in you. Is it inside of you already? Yeah. So the greatest musician that's out there right now is still in the individual right now that's never done music before.
So if I believe hard enough that I can sing.
No,
what-
no,
oh,
no,
no.
oh.
It's in
No, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. Sorry.
The thing is inside of all of us, and let me tell you, because listen, when you get into that shower and you start to see,
I'm Patti LaBelle in the shower. Look, Sade all day, sweet as Sabbath
and it's
all day in the
just
shower.
now you being in that environment where that's now being brought out of you on a day-to-day basis, and before you know it, the Beyonce that is out there, there's nothing that no one left from here on earth and go out there, go find, and come back and like, oh, I'm this superstar.
Y'all heard
No.
my album gonna be coming out soon just because of that.
It's
P, I'm gonna be
about
on your
you.
album.
It's about you.
Hey, let me say. Let me pause the show. Yolanda Thomas.
My mama.
She said, "Get free, baby. Speak truth. You are Yolanda A. daughter. I love you. Great show tonight."
Yes, I am Yolanda's daughter through and through, and I know I'm the bomb.
She just sent in something.
Right.
She
That's
your mom?
said, "Speak what you gonna speak.
Yeah.
Get free. Tell the truth.
Right.
Just came through the phone. If y'all don't believe it." Look. I had to show y'all.
Look, and I
There
know
you go. Speak the
I'm
truth.
the bomb now.
Yeah. So I was just looking at that like, wow, she just spoke right there. Like, yeah, the truth is the truth. Right. Now, where my mom at? You listening? Tell me, speak the truth, baby. Get free. Right? Can I get free tonight? I'm trying to get free. But we get ready to come to a close of his interview today. You know what I'm saying? And we need some links dropped. And,
Yes.
and what else is going for you? Or
Do you have any seminars coming, or how can people do you privately do clients, or how does this work?
So it's privately.
Okay.
What I'm actually doing now, I'm in the process of where the stuff that we were talking about,
Right.
I know them and I know them fluently, but like they were foreign to you, but it shouldn't be. So being a social activist is now that I know them, I could go activate other people in knowing them. So I'm actually working on now with a group of people forming a board. It's gonna call the Tebit Foundation.
True.
And it's a concept of now, how do you take the level of teaching and you bring it from an organic standpoint that I could teach you these things and it helps you to bring the best out of you, not to take a test.
All right.
Currently, I have my I Am Big Inner website, which you can go to iambiginner.com and you'll see some of the stuff that I've done already.
Okay.
Yeah, because you got clowned about that name coming in here.
Yeah,
You
because
was
I
at
said
the
it wrong,
car.
guys. I said it wrong. I was like,
know,
Big
it's on his
Gunner.
car.
I was like, Big. I was
She
like,
was
oh,
like,
his
Big
car says I
Gunner,
am Big
Big
Gunner. He's
Gunner.
like,
She
no.
was
He was, and I was like, oh, Big Ginner, and he was like, no.
No.
I was like, Big,
Big-
Inner.
it's Big
and I was like,
Inner.
oh, I get it, beginner. He's like,
no.
I am Big Inner. Just said
It says it how it says it. It reads it just like that.
Like, my
Big
bad.
and then inner. Oh, she's like, I thought it was for beginner. No, big inner. It reads it. After big, it got a bunch of periods.
It was the wind. It was the wind.
It's a bunch of periods, and
We're
then
gonna blame
underneath
on
it
the
says
wind.
inner.
No,
Inner, right.
It was the wind.
And
My
you know-
God. So
And that concept is, it says, I am Big Inner, and it's a biblical concept. I am that I am.
yeah,
right?
no doubt.
But going back to school and doing a course in psychology and human services, I started to learn about the different systems that are in the community.
That's
The
what's up.
educational system, the political system, the banking system, the medical system, all these systems. And I started to realize that most of the system that's out there is not for us.
Right, absolutely.
That's
So what I started to look at, the only system that you really have to help you is the system that's inside. And if you can make that system bigger than what's going on outside, and you overcome these things and you start to become this greater person. And I've seen it from a standpoint of who knows you best than the person who create you.
Right.
I am.
I am. There it is. Well, we have it there. So we have all his social. Do we have his Instagram?
Yes.
Instagram is Cleous Young.
Yep, Cleous Young.
So what else you got?
Twitter.
Everybody got so many.
Yeah,
Like-
but I don't think you have a face.
Yes, he does.
You have-
Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
because
ain't
I was
Facebook?
trying to type
got
it in, and
Facebook?
It came
my
up.
phone
So
copied
I tagged
it.
him in
It's
it.
up.
Yeah.
It's up because I just shared
I
some.
was trying, and
And
my
so once this
phone
comes
wasn't
out,
working.
we'll make sure that we get you the link for everything so that you
Okay.
can share it to your people. A lot of people were just texting in. They said it was a lot of information. This was like a very informational
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Last week we had a real hype show.
Right.
And so sometimes you're going to have some hype
cool.
shows.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna
And
have
then you're going to
that-
have some
you gotta- that
informational
teaching.
shows.
You need that
and,
teaching.
you know, it's going to keep going like that.
definitely.
We're going to get into some things. But it was a pleasure to have you out this
Hey,
evening,
thank
man.
you.
We
Yeah, thank you for
appreciate you.
coming.
Well, we're going to play a song real fast, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to holler at y'all for about maybe 10 more minutes, and then we're going to get out of here, man. A voice of reason for a reason. I'm your boy, Pastor P.
It's your boy Mike J.
And Lily Dane, hey mom.
Hey, listen. Hey, mom.
Hey, Mom.
She said, get free, girl. Get free. You better get free. Beginner? No, it's big.
Big Gunner. Not Big Gunner neither.
Yeah. Break time, baby. We'll be right back. All right, let's take a picture.
Lord, just